Severe storms, flash flooding, earthquakes, rainbows and unicorns, and your weekend forecast. Plus, how's your weather IQ? Well, stick around and find out. We're kicking off a brand new episode of Cold Rain's Weather World right now. Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Cold Rain's Weather World, the fastest growing new weather show on the internet. And we have all the weather right here at Cold Rain's Weather World. So if you're brand new to the channel, welcome aboard. If you're a returning guest, then thank you for coming back. We've got plenty to talk about today. We've got a severe weather threat this afternoon, a flash flooding threat potentially as well. We've got your weekend forecast. We're going to get into the severe weather threat that looks to be a little bit more prominent as we head into early next week that could bring all kinds of weather hazards across some portions of the country. So we're going to get into that. We're going to take a look at your weekend forecast. We've got no, we don't have unicorns. I'm kidding about unicorns, but we have rainbows to talk about, earthquakes, and a couple of other things as well as it sort of tangentially relates to the weather. So we're going to get into all of that stuff. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so and help us to grow the community. We want to continue to expand what we're doing, and leave a comment in the comments section, a question about weather, a suggestion for the show, anything I can pray over for you. I'm happy to do that. So please put that in the comments section. Give the content a like if you want to. It's right down below the video. Just hit that little thumbs up button if you like it. All of that helps YouTube send the video out to more people and reach a broader community. But we always claim to leave you smarter than when you came. And so we do that. One of the ways we do that anyway is by having our daily weather IQ question. And we always start with that. And we always end with that. So the question for today is about wind. We often have questions about wind, and we do today. So one of the questions, or today's question, is what is the name of the phenomenon where wind blows from the ocean towards the land? Is it a land breeze, a sea breeze, a mountain breeze, or a valley breeze? Okay, if you know the answer, type it in the comment section. If you do not know it, then just hold your horses and don't put the cart before the horse, and don't put all your eggs in one basket, or any other cliche you want to bring out there. But stick around to the end of the show and I'll have the answer for you. I usually like to start with the satellite imagery because it kind of gives you a big picture about what's going on, and oftentimes it can reveal things to you. And in this case, it reveals lots of cloud cover across much of the south, from Kentucky down into Florida, actually, and then over into Louisiana, into Texas, up into all through really much of North Dakota. There's a large area of cloud cover associated with some frontal zones and some little waves of low pressure that are set up across the area. Frontal zone kind of draped up here through the lakes, producing some clouds. And occasionally you see these little pop-ups. These are lightning. So this satellite display actually shows lightning. And a lot of times you can tell where the convection is, or the thunderstorms are, by these wispy clouds. They're blow off as the clouds go high up into the atmosphere. And a lot of times you can see lightning associated with that, and we certainly do in Oklahoma and Texas and a couple of other spots too. A little bit of cloud cover extending back into the Rockies as well. Rain is, of course, falling from underneath some of those clouds, particularly up here from just south of Billings up through much of South Dakota, from the Badlands into Sioux Falls down here into Iowa. Got another cluster that's moving through areas of central Kansas up into south central Nebraska, and then just east of Oklahoma City, approaching Dallas and Fort Worth, we're going to see a nice cluster of heavy rain and some thunder as well, coming through Baton Rouge heading into New Orleans. We've got another cluster down here, and then of course in Tennessee and over toward Charlotte, we've got some scattered showers and storms rolling through these areas too. So looking at what the Weather Prediction Center has to say, we've got a slight risk of flooding rains this afternoon. So excessive rainfall, level 2, slight risk, marginal risk from essentially the western lakes into the southeast, where we're going to see plenty of moisture and there are a few boundaries that are focusing that moisture, and particularly in the slight risk area from Iowa down into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we're looking at potentially training of cells and several rounds of thunderstorm activity through the day. And of course, those will drop multiple inches of rain, potentially up to as much as 4 inches, maybe a widespread 1 to 2 in this area, but local amounts of 4 inches. So I would not be surprised to see some scattered flash flood warnings through the day. We do have a severe threat from Pueblo, Colorado, just south of Dodge City into Oklahoma, down here into Lubbock and Amarillo and Midland, Texas, for potential severe weather this afternoon in the form mainly of supercells developing. And you get that rotation, you get more dynamism in the atmosphere, you get potentially large hail production. So we could see some baseball-sized hail, particularly in areas in the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma too. So watch out for that. Wind threat's relatively low, tornado threat relatively low too. You can't preclude tornadoes exactly, but once in a while you get a situation where you don't have a lot of tornado parameters coming together, and that's what we see today. So we're not looking at a widespread severe weather event, so just some sporadic severe weather. And how all this plays out at the surface today, we've got low pressure up here in Canada and a couple of other waves through out different portions of the country, but you've got these boundaries like this cold front that extends from the lakes all the way into Colorado, and then the dry line that extends up into Colorado from southern Texas. And these boundaries often are focuses for showers and thunderstorm activity. You've got another stalled frontal zone across the southeast. It looked like this was actually going to be a little bit more north over the balance of the week, providing much more in the way of rainfall to North Carolina, but that is actually sagged south. We've got this little high pressure area up here in the northeast that's nosing in. It's sort of like a little wintertime wedge pattern where we've got some drier air nosing in at the surface, and that's acting to shunt the moisture south. And we'll see that in a minute on our precipitable water imagery. But what that means for you is that if you live in Virginia, northern North Carolina, northeastern North Carolina, you're probably not going to see much in the way of rain today. That will be confined to southern parts of the area and then over into the foothills and the mountains for the best chances of clouds and rain. And much of the southeast will be cloudy and rainy today, with, of course, that excessive rainfall threat out here in the mid plains, lower plains, and then a little bit west of there, West Texas, we're seeing a severe threat. Looking at Cape this afternoon, we're going to start there, look at Cape, and you see plenty of instability in Texas, more than enough to get thunderstorms going. We just need a mechanism to lift that, and we have the dry line, and so that's going to help be a focus. So we'll get those air parcels lifted. We don't have a lot of shear, so we're not looking at a widespread severe weather event and organized severe weather. We're looking at more clusters of storms that can maybe interact with each other and supercells, as I said before. And so you'll see that thread extend up into portions of Kansas and into Colorado too, and that will die out as the heating of the day wears on and we start to see some nocturnal cooling take over. Precipitable water, I like to show this because it shows integrated moisture through the entire atmosphere, and it gives you an idea where it's going to be cloudy and potentially rainy too. And so this morning, plenty of moisture. You can see by these green colors. When you start to see these sort of lighter green colors, that's where we get into higher values of precipitable water and more efficient rainfall production and cloud production. So moving this along as we get on into mid-afternoon, you see this boundary set up here. So really along this boundary, we're not going to see much in the way of rain, and maybe even you have mostly sunny skies for portions of North Carolina here, and of course up into Ohio and Illinois, up through Illinois and Indiana. But as we go through the day, that moisture is prevalent across much of the area that we saw for the excessive rainfall risk down into Texas, through the south. Plenty of deep moisture that's just surging in as we go through the overnight hours that persists. So we'll continue to see potentially showers and storms through some parts of this area, through the overnight areas where the boundaries and outflow boundaries kind of intersect with each other from these different clusters of thunderstorms. And so plenty of moisture maintains itself over the southeast. And as we go on out through time and look at this through the course of Friday evening, Saturday, we've got a system up north, and we're going to look at this a little bit more, but it's going to drag a cold front through eventually and drag some of that moisture out of the southeast and bring some showers and storms on Saturday and then get us out of here on Sunday. But that's what's going on. We already looked at Cape, putting this all into motion. And so how this will play out in terms of what we're looking at the surface. Rain this morning in Texas, rain around all over the southeast. And as we go through the day, that will just expand along these boundaries that I showed you before. And so we're going to see these clusters develop and train potentially over the same areas. You can kind of see that happening here as we get through the overnight hours toward Friday morning. You see a little bit of persistence and some organization, some little clusters and line segments of storms. And so that'll happen. And then looking at the total rainfall over the next 24 hours or so, this takes us here. I'll just put it in through Friday morning. Several areas here of 2 to 4 inches of rain in spots. The model is not going to tell you exactly where thunderstorms are going to develop, but it gives you an idea of the general footprint of where the rain should exist. So anybody that's in these blue areas, green areas, should just pay attention for potential thunderstorms and training of those cells. And that'll get you, a good idea of where you could be alert for a flash flood warning later today. So that's that. Temperature wise, very, very warm across much of the nation with the exception of some areas of the northern Rockies and then into the northern parts of the country where you can stay in the 50s and 60s. Up here in the very tip of Maine, be in the 50s, but 60s, 70s, and 80s dominate much of the country. There's going to be clouds and showers around, so you may not get out of the 80s or 70s in some of these areas. Certainly mountains are going to be a little bit chillier. And I'm showing you the wrong display, so you can't see anything that I'm showing you. But this is it. This is the map with the temperatures on. Now you can see what I was just describing, but very, very warm for the eastern portion of the nation. And if we look at lows overnight tonight, so you know how to dress if you're going out. Muggy and warm across much of the east and southeast. Chilly across the north, 30s and 40s. And then back in the Rocky Mountains, we're going to see lows into the 20s. So chilly in some of these blue areas, of course. Western third of the nation, you're going to see temperatures in the 30s and 40s. And that's your forecast for today. We'll get into the severe weather threat. For the rest of the weekend and early next week, we'll see a more organized severe weather threat. We're going to talk about that, have your weekend forecast, take a look at the long range, just a few minutes. So before we get on with our weekend forecast and the rest of the severe weather update, I wanted to share a fun fact with you about rainbows. We've all seen rainbows before, and you probably know that you need to have kind of a low angle of sunlight. And you have to have rain, of course. And so the sunlight enters the raindrop, it refracts, and then it reflects off the back of the raindrop, and then refracts again as it comes out of the raindrop, and it scatters the light into the various colors that we are able to see, the Roy G. Biv colors of the rainbow. But once in a while, you'll get a double rainbow that's fainter. And so what happens there is that instead of reflecting just one time within the raindrop, the light actually reflects twice and then comes out a second time and gets refracted again, and the colors are reversed because of the second reflection, and because all of that reflecting is causing some of the light to be lost, the second rainbow is dimmer. So you need for this to happen, it doesn't happen every time, but for this to happen, you need a good bright sun. You can't have pollution and haze in the atmosphere, and you can't have thin clouds. You got to have a good bright sun. It's got to be kind of low in the atmosphere, and the raindrops generally have to be bigger to allow for that secondary reflection process to take place. And so then you get that double rainbow. The colors are inverted, and it's usually a little bit fainter. So that's what happens there. I thought you would enjoy that. And as a special treat, this is called a twofer. On 1990, the Hubble telescope was launched on April the 24th. So now you know something about history that is not related to the weather. How about that? All right, let's get on with it here. And by the way, I got my camera reversed, so now you can see properly the letters that show up when I wear clothing with letters like this, for example. And so makes me have to pay attention because things are reversed in my view. So I had to reverse myself to make it right for you guys. You're welcome. All right, now let's get into this. So we've got severe weather potentially over the next few days and a more organized severe threat as we head into early next week. So looking here, we've got a marginal risk tomorrow over the panhandle of Texas again for, mostly hail and wind here, not really seeing a lot in the way of tornadoes potentially. But again, same kind of situation today. Cape values are up. We just don't have a lot of wind shear to organize anything, so we don't have a widespread severe weather event. Same again on Saturday. As we go through the day on Saturday, there could be a potential for some of these areas here in the southeast, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia. We could see a potential for marginal risk here. We're going to have to see how things kind of play out. If we've got ongoing convection at the beginning of the day, that could eat up some of the instability, but there's going to be a cold front that moves through, kind of sweeps out the moisture, backs off the temperatures for a couple of days. It's going to feel nicer in portions of the southeast, at least the upper portions of the southeast, as that takes place into Sunday and Monday, maybe even Tuesday before things warm up again. But we could see a marginal risk pop up there. The greater risk is out here in the plains, in getting into the heartland area, upper Mississippi River Valley, as we get into Monday. A trough is going to develop out west, and we've got a split flow. We've got energy coming in the northern stream. Low pressure is going to drag a cold front up in this area, so we're going to have a much better shear profile. We'll probably see some low-level jet interaction as well. So we're looking at an all hazards day on Monday. We've got an enhanced risk, or a 30% risk already in place for Monday for Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin areas, upper Missouri, and then a slight risk or a 15% chance around that. So Monday could be quite the active weather day with tornadoes, hail, and high winds possible. And then that threat persists as we get on into Tuesday, just shifts east a little bit. And so we'll see some of these areas may be upgraded too. But we're going to see kind of a situation where we've seen earlier in the spring, you get these low pressures build up in the plains, move to the Great Lakes, and bring plenty of wind energy to organize severe weather. We've got a nice southerly flow out ahead, so we'll have plenty of good moisture to work with and instability as well. Taking a look at the mid-level flow here and the energy within the mid-level, this is at 500 millibars, so around 18,000 feet up, 3.5 miles up off the ground. This afternoon or Friday afternoon, we don't have a lot in the way of energy here. We've just got kind of a broad, ridging kind of going on here in the middle of the country. You can see that ridge by looking at these height lines here. See these lines kind of go like this. This is a ridge. When you have ridging in the mid levels of the atmosphere, it's a little tougher to get shower and thunderstorm generation, which is why we don't have much in the way of risk the next couple of days. We just got this ridging that's going on out here. But watch what happens as we go on through time and get into Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. Look what's happening. You got this big upper level low out here carving out a trough. Got this other system that's swinging through in the northern branch. That's going to drag, as we go through the day Saturday, this is going to drag a cold front through like this and kind of sweep everything out and bring a line of showers and storms through the day on Saturday to portions of the southeast, North Carolina, South Carolina. We get on into Sunday, that's going to be exiting the coast, so we're going to have winds out of the northwest. That's going to be nice and dry situation, nice dry flow out here in the southeast. But then out in the southwest, we've got this trough coming in and strengthening. We're going to see kind of split into two pieces. We'll see this upper portion, or the northern portion of the jet stream. We've got this, it splits out here. We've got this trough here. That's what's working through on Monday. That's going to bring plenty of shear and a potential severe weather threat for Iowa and kind of the Midwest area. And then this other trough is sort of hanging back. So we're going to see capping in the atmosphere all in here in Texas, Oklahoma. So it may be hard to get thunderstorms down to this area. We're going to have to wait and see. If that cap becomes less of a problem, we could see that slight risk on Monday extend back. But so watch what happens. We're here Monday evening. We go into Tuesday morning. Now we're finally seeing this kick out. This other little system, this kink up here, is moving through. So it'll continue to be a focus for showers and thunderstorms across the Midwest. And finally, as this moves out into Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, we could really see an enhancement of severe weather activity. We don't see that threat on the SPC page yet, but I expect we will. And then we get another kind of bowling ball spinning out here, so unsettled weather on the West Coast. And then that other this trough begins to move east here through the mid-Mississippi Valley, dissipate a little bit, but it still should bring some showers and thunderstorms into the southeast too as we go on through time. So that's how that looks. Looking at how that plays out at the surface map Friday morning into Friday afternoon. Plenty of showers and thunderstorms across the Midwest. Not necessarily seeing a lot of severe weather here, but plenty of rainfall to be had across, the Tennessee Valley, Ohio Valley, down into the southeast. And as we get through Saturday, look what happens. So Saturday could be rather unsettled and rainy from Texas all the way up into the Northeast. So unfortunately, the first part of the weekend doesn't look so good. And then we get on into Sunday, they look what happens. With the exception of the Northeast, we're starting to see things really clear out across the South, portions of the Southeast anyway, upper portions of the Southeast. As high pressure works in, low pressure will continue to bring lingering showers and clouds through Sunday up in the Northeast. So unfortunately, the weekend doesn't look so good up from the New England area up into Maine. But portions of the Southeast certainly are going to clear out as we get into Sunday, and the Midwest up here into the Great Lakes area should have a nice weekend. Still cloudy with showers around potentially Sunday afternoon. And so that's how that looks. Getting into Monday, we see potential as we get into Monday afternoon for a severe weather event. As I said, there are those showers and thunderstorms. And then that spreads east and dissipates as we get into Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon, this cold front really lights up all the way from down here in Texas, near Midland, all the way up into the Great Lakes area near Buffalo and Watertown and places like that. So we're gonna have to watch out on Tuesday. Could have some strong showers and storms that'll dissipate and then move out as we get on later into the week. We get a little low pressure to form here. So that's what your week ahead looks like. Your weekend update looks like. Looking at the temperatures through the course of the weekend, tomorrow, much like today, the cooler area is going to be across the central, upper portion of the country with 50s and 60s for highs, 70s making it all the way up to the Canadian border out west, 80s across the south, 70s and 80s across much of the east for highs on Friday. Saturday, a little bit warmer here in the plains and Rocky Mountain West. We're going to get 60s and 70s all the way up to the border. Warm across the south. That cold front's going to be starting to press in. Low pressure is going to move over into the weekend. In the New England area through the weekend. And I'm doing it again, folks. I really apologize for this. I got to get better about getting my display up so you can see what I'm showing you. So Saturday, New England, you could be in the 50s and 60s and much, much warmer across the southern tier where it stays in the 80s. And then on Sunday, cooling off in New England and a little bit cooler behind that front. We've got 70s into the Carolinas, and then 80s along the southern tier, but 80s shooting back up into the plains ahead of this trough. So we're going to have strong southwesterly flow, cooler in the west, and warmer as we get into the plains into Sunday, so ahead of that trough. And so that's what's going on there. Looking at our 7-day precipitation forecast, most of the rain, the lion's share of it anyway, is going to be here in Oklahoma and Texas, extending up into Missouri, where we could see as much as 4, 5, even 6 inches of rain in some of these areas where thunderstorms train over. Outside of that, plenty of rain over the central portion of the country. Just along the west coast and the east coast, we're seeing, and the desert southwest, we're seeing, and down in Florida, a little less rain. Temperature forecast over the next the 6 to 10 day period, much above for much of the country, particularly along the eastern fourth and the western fourth, near normal out in the desert southwest. Hawaii is above, Alaska mostly below. And then precipitation outlook above to much above for most of the east, and then below in the Intermountain West and the Rocky Mountains up here in the northern plains, and a little bit more activity up in the northwest around the Olympics, and then of course into Alaska and Hawaii, looking at above normal precipitation there. Looking out at the ultra long range, I mean, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just know as we get out here beyond 6 to 10 days, some indications are starting to build that we could see a little bit more troughing in the east. Now, this model sort of shows, this is the GFS ensemble, and it shows ridging backing up in here into Canada in the west, and then a little bit more troughing along the east. That would dry us out and keep us a little cooler than normal. The European ensemble shows this just to a lesser extent, but we'll watch this as we get on into May, and maybe we can start May cool in the east and warm in the west. Volcanic activity, not much going on outside of our 4 spots here in the Pacific Ring of Fire, so nothing new there. We did have an earthquake in Turkey. It was a 6.2, a lot of shaking. It was fairly shallow. I think it was 10 kilometers below the surface. And so a lot of shaking, people running out into the streets, some debris falling. I don't think there was a ton of damage there, but certainly some people were injured with some falling debris. As far as solar activity goes, we've got a coronal hole that's facing Earth, so we're always on guard for solar winds when that happens. That could help create geomagnetic activity, and if that happens, we see auroras pushing south. But right now, we're not really seeing that. Aurora staying mostly, in terms of visibility of aurora, we're seeing mostly along the northern tier, and that even it retreats a little bit farther into Canada tomorrow. So that is your weather. I told you we've got all the weather at Cold Rain's Weather World, not just rain and sunshine. And that brings us to the answer to today's Weather IQ question. As promised, I always leave you smarter than when you came. You may already know the answer to this, but hopefully you learned some other things along the way. And if you don't know the answer to this question, you're going to know it right now. And you can go and tell all your friends, hey, I watched Cold Rain's Weather World, and now I'm smarter about the weather. So take a look at the answer and see if you got it right. So the question was, what is the phenomenon where the wind blows from the ocean towards the land? Land breeze, sea breeze, mountain breeze, valley breeze, and the answer is sea breeze. So why is that? Well, the sun heats the earth. It all starts with the sun. Everything starts with the sun. The sun heats the earth, and then pressure changes and air moves. Okay, so that's the basic premise. In physics, it's easier to heat up a solid body than a fluid body. So the ocean, being deep and wide, is going to be a lot harder to heat and cool than the surface of the land. And so the sun shines on the land, and you see this all the time in the summer. You go to the beach and the wind blows off the ocean during the daytime. The sun heats the land, and the air rises once it heats. Hot air rises, okay, so warm air rises. It rises and it creates a lower pressure zone at the surface. So it's kind of like a vacuum. And so air has to rush in off the ocean to replace it. And you get a cool breeze blowing in off the ocean. And oftentimes you can even look back to your west if you're on the East Coast and see a line of showers and thunderstorms. That sea breeze will sometimes flow fairly far inland, and the convergence of where the sea breeze hits where air is not moving so much can create a convergence zone, and you get additional lift, and you get showers and thunderstorms, clouds, and so forth along that zone. That's called a sea breeze front, as a matter of fact. I should have put that in another question. But now you know about sea breezes. One day we'll talk about land breezes. Hint, hint. All right, well, that's it for today, folks. I hope you've had a good time, and I hope you have a nice rest of the afternoon. And as always, if other stations run 24/7, we got you covered 48/14 right here at Cold Rain's Weather World. Take it easy, folks. Have a great day.